Tuesday, as always, we're going to focus a little bit more on breath and breathing, and we'll go back to basics of the biomechanics, where the breath glides, where the breath sits when you take a light breath, when you take a slightly fuller breath. But as always, start off with some nice mobilization to create the space for the breath. So finding your space, standing space, make sure you've got plenty of room around you. And we'll just start off with, hopefully you can see okay there, yeah. Just start off with some knocking. So feet shoulder width apart, nice and tall through the spine, and just moving from that center point, from the hips and the waist. Just keeping the spine long. It doesn't have to be a big movement, just a gentle movement. And just glancing in the direction that you're going. Just breathing easy, nice and soft and light through the nose. And letting your elbows bend and just tapping your back and belly. These three movements, this one being the first, are, I would say, essential for every day, even if you just do 2 or 3 of each. Something that I will definitely do every day. So here we're working on spine rotation. And then gradually slowing it down. Coming to a standing. One little element just to add to that, what I don't want to do is overcomplicate these movements, these warm-ups and these mobilizations. But one little thing you can add to that is, if I mirror you, as you rotate to the, if I'm mirroring you in the right direction, as you rotate to the left, you're just keeping that left rib sort of like down and in towards the spine. So if we lean back, you can see if we go, oh, I'm going to lean back, that left rib lifts up and out, and you feel that left rib pushing forwards. So the idea is we keep in this spine neutral or long spine. So if you just have a sense of that left rib staying in the body as you come towards the left side, makes a big difference. Just have a little play with that now without hurting yourself. It's always good to feel what it feels like if it's slightly out of alignment or if it's really out of alignment. So just bring that left rib out, lean back and come over to the left, and you see you've got that real sort of like spine there. You're coming into that that compression of that lower back. So just have a little go at that without, I mean, overdo it without hurting yourself. Left rib up, and then bring it up and forwards, and then come back, and then put it back down. And now do the opposite of that. Bring the left rib down and in, and notice how, oh yeah, like my spine stays in the same line. We don't want it to be up and out, and you might not get as far. This is the point. You might go, oh, I can only get to there before that left rib starts to move. There is where you want to be going then. And then let's do the same on the other side. So come to the right rib, and then let's take the right rib out and push it forwards, and then bring back, and then you feel that more compression in the lower back there. Bring the right rib down and back in. And now do it where you're bringing the right rib down and then staying down and in towards the spine as you're looking towards the right. And again, you'll say, oh, look, I can keep that central rotational axis. So this rib is actually moving. These ribs are moving in, keeping in the body, if that makes sense. So again, I really don't want to overcomplicate these mobilizations, because it's that sense of feeling light and free. But if we're leaning back and doing this, we're not getting the optimal rotation through the spine. So let's go back to that spine rotation. And then just have in mind, don't force anything, but just have in mind where your ribs are positioned, your lower ribs are positioned. It helps that working from the center as well. It helps that movement from the center. These nuances of movements are really difficult when you're doing stuff online. It's always a nice, these are the type of things that are great to do when you're in person, so you can have a little prod and stuff like that. But it's, as we're working through these movements, it's nice just to double check our alignment without overthinking it, without overcomplicating things. So maybe you don't have as much rotation as you thought you had in your spine, in your upper back, in your lower back. And the camera's gone off. Keep going. It does help if I remember to change the battery. So just keep that sense of alignment and then relaxation too in the upper back, in the shoulders. And then slow that down into water waves. And same thing here, you're actually going that little bit slower. You can maybe notice it a little bit more. And then stand for a moment. Relax the lower back. And then let's move into spinal cord breathing. So soft knees, hips back ever so slightly, and then opening up, breathing in, curling into a little ball, breathing out. Now, even though it does feel like a nice stretch, don't overstretch, don't force things. And you can tell if you're forcing by following the breath. If you can breathe smoothly in and smoothly out through the nose, no sound, then the movement is smooth. And I like the point, I think I've mentioned it a couple of times before, that I was watching one of the masters on the breath source, Kat and Kriya breath, and she just mentioned, it was something similar to this. It wasn't as big a movement, it was the spine wave, but she mentioned the throat. And I like that now, just opening the throat helps to create that wave. Do a couple more. And then take a rest. Worked my shoulders this morning. Another little nuancy one to think about that, and it's the same thing actually that we're talking about, is that it's very easy just to lift it, just to move the whole rib cage, and then we just use that lower back, or almost like the lower back as a hinge, and we compress the lower back and the rib cage comes up, when we come back down, and we come back and we come back down. So we end up just hinging here in the lower back, not in the hips. What we want to make sure we're doing when we do this extension is, and I know I mention this all of the time, but really focus on this mid-back area here. So the sternum is lifting, but almost like you want to, the ribs obviously will lift, but you don't want the ribs just to flare out. You want the spine to extend here, and then almost feel as if you're wanting to keep the ribs in the body, which is nice of then opening the throat. So you are getting some movement through the lower back, but we're not just getting compression of the lower back. So let's do a few more just with that in mind. Again, you might not be able to do as big a movement. So nice and stable on the ground. Nice and slow breath in. Open up the throat. Breath out. Tuck the pelvis. One more in your own time. And then take a rest. So the whole idea is that we're getting the spine moving, we're getting the rib cage moving as well, freeing the rib cage. Next one, dog wags the tail. So again, you can go a little bit wider sometimes on this with the feet. You can go maybe a shoulder and a bit width apart. Start shifting the weight side to side, and then just freeing up the spine. And it's imagining that you've got a tail at the end of your tailbone, and then you just allow the spine to wave on top of that. And I've slept funny. I've done something really odd to that side of my neck, so I can feel that. It's nice just to do it gently, but there's something going on there on my neck, so it's not as free as it normally is. Oh yeah, I can feel that, and I didn't notice that until I just did this. Ah! And then slow it down, slow it down. And again, we'll just go through a couple of pointers on that one. So we're not dropping hips side to side. That's a good movement, it's good exercise if we want to just really work on the hips. But the hips are not dropping side to side. That's quite a common one, that we just drop the hips. If I drop the hip to that side, then the rib cage just tilts to that side. If I drop the ribs to that side, rib cage just tilts to that side. So we're not doing that. We want to keep the pelvis pretty level to the ground. So we start off, and imagine that your spine is just balanced on top of the pelvis, and it's not moving much. So the head's not moving much. So we're just shifting the weight. You can feel the ground. You're pushing the ground away from side to side. And then you start to allow the spine to wave. So when you're shifting to one side, then the other side, the rib cage goes towards the pelvis. So the lower ribs move towards the pelvis, which creates that ripple. Because again, what we could do is just do that. We could just move side to side, and then the whole rib cage, it's almost like it's moving as one unit. Or we could start to lead with the shoulders or the head. And there's nothing wrong with that. It's just for the purposes of what we want to do here is really move the center and just let that rib cage and spine wave on top of the pelvis. Good. And then let's have a good shake. So those are the three things I will do almost without fail every day. Just a gentle bit of movement, even if you just do one or two. just to get the spine moving. And then just shake however much you need. You might feel you want a gentle shake, or you might want a little bit more of a shake. You might want to tap your heels into the ground, get some more vibration. And then it's also good to do some of the cleansing and clearing. So taking a calm, full breath in through the nose and breath out. You might want to sigh out, you might want to candles breath out, whatever feels right for this morning. Breath in. Oh. 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 And then slowing it down, slowing it down, slowing it down. And then stand. And when you've done the shaking, and when you stand, feel that tingling sensation. That's the energy that you've created. Bring your fingers now, just back of the hands together, so you've got your fingers connected like that. Bring your fingers just below the belly button. There's the belly button. Just come below the belly button onto the lower abdomen. And just rest your fingers there. And if it feels comfortable, just apply a gentle pressure there too. If that feels uncomfortable, then don't do it. But if it feels comfortable, apply a gentle pressure there. And just notice as you're breathing in, see if you can just push the fingers out a little bit. Again, not forcing anything, but as you're breathing in, that lower abdomen expands a little bit. And as you're breathing out, fingers sink back in. Just breathing normally, not taking big breaths. And then just play around with your pelvis position. So if you push your pelvis forwards, and again, it's always good to exaggerate this so you can really feel the difference. If you push the pelvis forwards, how does that feel? And if you bring the pelvis back, if you tilt forwards a little bit, how does that feel? And then stand tall so you've got your pelvis balanced over your ankles. So when we're talking about a true deep breath, this is what I always focus on, this area below the belly button. So in qigong, dantian breathing, breathing into the dantian, breathing into the lower dantian. Now we know we can't physically breathe into there, but what we're feeling here is what we call intra-abdominal pressure. So as the diaphragm moves down here, puts pressure, moves the organs down, and it puts pressure in this abdominal area, and then you feel the consequence of the response to the in-breath. So breathing into the center. Let's bring your hands now here onto the lower ribs, right onto the lower ribs. So this is where, if you feel around the ribs here, this is where your diaphragm is. You can have a good prod if you've not had your lunch. You could have had your lunch if you've not had your breakfast yet. Feeling under there, finding the diaphragm. And then hands on the ribs. Get the thumbs in the back, so the back ribs. So what we've got to remember too is we're not just feeling the response of the breath down here and forwards. Feel the response of the breath as you're breathing in here. So here, as you're breathing in, what we call lateral movement, that side movement of the ribs. And this is why we're doing all of this movement here to get the rib cage moving, spinal cord, all of these three movements, so that actually when we breathe, the ribs do move. So feel that side movement, but also, and importantly, and I think this is what I think it's from a lot of people, just breathing into the back. So feel the breath, feel the movement into the back of the body here, into the back of the ribs. So when we're talking about wave breathing, when we think of spinal cord breathing, everything starts from the center and moves up. And it's not just moving up the front of the body either. Breathing into the back. And then coming up to our sternum area, again, this movement here in this thoracic spine. A lot of people say, oh, I shouldn't be chest breathing. Remember, this is one cavity, so there's no difference between where the breath goes. It's just about where you have the space. And if you think about the lower part of the body first, is where the space starts, and then come up to the sternum. And now we can take just a slightly fuller breath. So we start down here, and then we get this little bit of a lift here. And free up the shoulders a little bit as well, because we often get trapped around the shoulders here, so we just hike the breath up. See if you can just feel a little bit of movement in the shoulders, or a little bit of freedom actually in this rib here, in the collarbone and the rib. So see if we can take a slightly fuller breath and just breathe into the space here. So start from the belly as you're breathing in. Feel the ribs. And then coming up here in the chest and the shoulders. Almost like breathe into the shoulders. And notice how you can really elongate the breath if you have more space to breathe. And then take a rest. Another really nice way to think about that is breathing into the hips. So when we breathe down here, we were talking about this on Saturday in the workshop. When you feel the breath here, it's almost like you're breathing into the hips, because we're getting the response to the pelvic floor as you breathe in. Breathing into the hips and then breathing into the shoulders. So you're breathing all the way from the hips, shoulders, and that's what gives you this nice spine wave. So with all of that in mind, and without overcomplicating things, I know I like to look more into the detail, but I don't want to overcomplicate it for you. It's all about enjoyment. Let's do a little bit of a flow, and the really nice flow that I'm really into at the minute, which is really helping with this spine wave breathing, if you like, is the baby bird flow. So back of the palms together. And then you breathe in. Now, this does exactly what it's sort of like showing you, is you're breathing in from down here, or you breathe in feeling down here, response down here, waving up the spine. Now the elbows lift, so your feel is lifting the shoulders a little bit, freeing up that upper shoulders, freeing up the upper back, and then the elbows drop, and you breathe out. So you're breathing in from the hips, up the spine, free up the top of the shoulders, breathe out. And see how slow you can make this without feeling air hunger. So see if you can make that breath really slow, but still feeling relaxed and calm. Notice how by lifting the elbows, you're opening that space at the top of the chest, which often gets tight. Let's do one more in your own time. And then move that into pulling down the heavens. And do 3 pulling down the heavens. Still having sense that spine wave, subtle spine wave. Interlocking thumbs, resting on that lower dantian, bringing the feet together. Standing tall, closing your eyes just for one moment. And then taking your time just to open your eyes when you're ready and bringing your awareness back into the space around you. Stepping out, brushing yourself down. And we will finish there. Thank you. Hopefully not too overcomplicating things there, but I just like to, these are just the little things when I'm playing around with it that I'm noticing, that the clients are noticing them when we're working in different groups, that we're noticing. So it's nice for for you to just explore that and see how that works for you. Good. Just a couple of pointers. I will not be here on Thursday because I'm traveling again, so I will get it will be either Andrew or Alice. I haven't asked either one of them yet, so I'll see who can do it on Thursday. Watch out for their Zoom link if you are on the Zoom sessions. If you're watching on Facebook and YouTube, then I just play a classic class, so I will always put their links. And I know the email that went out yesterday, because it was bank holiday, I forgot it was a Monday and I forgot to change it, so it was an old email. On Friday, I'm doing a lunch and learn. I will be talking about the Oxygen Advantage instructor training, so if you're interested in that, if you just want to come along and watch a lunch and learn, I'll be just going through what we do in London and in Scotland, actually. So just go through the days, the type of things we do for practice, and I'll also go through the online training portal just to show you the amount of content that Patrick gives online as well, because if you're doing any instructor training with me or any of the other master instructors, you also get access to Patrick's training as well, which is fantastic. There's a lot of materials there. So a few people have just asked me questions about that, so I thought it's better just to do a lunch and learn, then just keep repeating it to people. So that's on Friday if you're interested in joining that. But if not, I will see you next Tuesday for some more breath work. Have a wonderful week, and I'll see you soon. Take care. Bye. Thank you all. Oh, I've lost where's my mouse gone? There's the mouse.